stages of growth, evolution, etc. And my current company where I am, which is WPP, I've spent almost, I'm going to be, doing my completing my 18 years in July. And then finally I took up a job which was actually an HR job, but I was very fond of writing, so I decided to work as a journalist, and I took up a job at Hindustan Times. And it has been a very interesting journey because just from a scale, if I were to give you a sense, when I joined, there were 400 people in the company. Today I work for a company which has 11,000 people just in India. I love trying new things. So I'll give you an example. Tomorrow, for the first time, I'm going to play a pickleball tournament in Gurgaon.
Welcome to the CHRO Exchange Podcast by Masters Union, where we spotlight trailblazing leaders that redefine the future of work, culture, and talent transformation. Today, we have an extremely inspiring leader in our midst, somebody whose career is a masterclass in embedding culture and making culture drive organizational success. As the Chief Culture Officer of WPP, our guest has taken up the mandate of driving cultural transformation in one of the world's largest creative transformation companies. She is an alumna of the Lady Shri Ram College, University of Delhi, the University of Oxford, and has held several key roles such as Talent Partner Lead at GroupM South Asia and Culture and Transformation Lead at GroupM India, as well as several roles in the past, including one with Hutchison, the telecom company, Times of India Group, the Indian media conglomerate, and the World Bank. Please join me in welcoming Apoorva Bapna to the podcast. It's a pleasure to host you.
Thank you so much, and thank you for that lovely introduction.
Yeah, thank you. So Apoorva, I'd like to begin with a basic question, for our listeners to understand this deeper. What is your role as Chief Culture Officer of WPP? What does a Chief Culture Officer in today's day and age actually?
Yeah, sure. So actually, it's interesting because I get this question comes very often when people say what you do, and I tell them Chief Culture Officer, and the question is, so what does a Chief Culture Officer do? So I'll give you a bit of a story. Back in 2018, WPP globally was going through a lot of transformation, and there was a leadership change at the top. And when the new leader came in to take the reins, he came with a very clear focus on, we had to look and create an organization which was focused not just on clients and keeping client as a focus, but also look at how do you build people values, how do you build a culture where people feel a sense of belonging and inclusion. And that was part of a strategic sort of vision that he had created for the organization. And then it was left for the countries to translate and bring it to life. And in India, also there was a leadership change that happened. And the leader who came in actually, interestingly, the first hire that he made was of Chief Culture Officer. Wow. And that was, I'm grateful that I got that role. Of course, I'd been part of the network, so there was a sense of familiarity. In terms of what the role does, it was a blank canvas when the role got created. So there was no precedence to what should be the areas of work that the role should have focused on. So in a way, it was good that we got a chance to build it from scratch. I think the first 2 years were very interesting because I joined right at the time COVID struck for the first time, and we moved to remote working as a company, which was unheard of in my business, and also the years after COVID, when things settled down. I think my role largely focused on firstly building an organization, because we are such a diverse organization spread across geographies, skills, age groups, functions, agencies, etc. I think the first thing that we wanted to do was actually create a space where there is natural cross collaboration happening between people, which in turn was helping deliver success to the clients that we work for. And I think from an inorganic standpoint, we brought lots of people from different spaces to come together and think of ways of building an organization where everybody felt a sense of, that you feel like a sense of belonging. And some of the other areas that I've worked on is creating a unified culture of learning and development at WPP, because again, in pockets there is excellence, but we wanted to create a common base for learning for people, given all that's going around us as an ecosystem, right? And a lot of focus on the work that we do with building more sustainable organization. And there are many things that we've done, and we'll talk about I'm sure you'll cover that. But those are some of the areas. So learning and development, sustainability, creating a culture of openness, feeling a sense of belonging, committing to extraordinary work for clients were some of the areas that I work on in my current role.
Awesome. Great. I mean, you worked at various organizations, various scale of organizations, various sectors. Could you just sum up your journey from the very beginning and how your career has pivoted through various milestones, so to speak, for our listeners?
Yeah, I've actually had a very checkered career, Abhishek, and I won't say it was by design or by choice, but it was something that happened. Now, when I look back, I'm quite happy that the way it happened, because I think having a checkered career helps you to open up your mind to possibilities, and you actually take up any challenge that can potentially come your way because you've gone through that journey yourself. So, after finishing my MBA in HR, the actual sort of, or the usual normal route should have been to work in an organization where I get a HR job. Yeah. But I was very fond of writing, so I decided to work as a journalist, and I took up a job at Hindustan Times. Wow. And I worked with them for a year, and I used to get a daily beat in the paper, which was a big high for me, and got to work across very, very different topics, because the daily beat had to be different, had to cover different areas every day. Did that, and then there was a project that World Bank was financing for NGO in Rajasthan, which was focused on how do you bring about economic empowerment for women through microfinancing. Very different from what I had done from an education standpoint, but it would seem like a really interesting challenge to take up, and I did that project for about a year, and it was superb in terms of learning because I got to travel within the rural belts, understand the ecosystem the grassroots in a much better way. And then finally, I took up a job which was actually an HR job with Hutchison. And then from there on, I'd done different roles within the talent space. I mean, and of course, different industries. So telecom, of course, media and entertainment has been my largest stint, almost close to 23 years in media and entertainment. But seen very, very different stages of growth, evolution, etc. And my current company where I am, which is WPP, I'm going to be, completing my 18 years in July.
Wow.
And it has been a very interesting journey because just from a scale, if I were to give you a sense, when I joined, there were 400 people in the company. Today, I work for a company which has 11,000 people just in India. And I've seen that whole journey of scale. And I'm talking about people because to me, that's the area that I work on most. Of course, business has grown and revenues have grown and, companies have grown and agencies have grown. But yeah, so I've seen that scale has been really fascinating to work on. And today, when you ask me what I enjoy most, is the scale that I get to work on, because the potential to impact lives of as many people as you can through the work that you do is most gratifying for me.
Great. As you know, I worked with various media agencies, sold to them my career in the media industry as well before this. So many large organizations within WPP's umbrella in India itself. How do you sort of create a uniform SOP of culture across how do you unify culture and how do you create that uniform SOP amongst them?
So one of the things that we've been very clear from the start is that as a network company, we exist to enable and empower our agencies to work more efficiently, effectively, and provide them all the support that they need in order to run their businesses successfully. And therefore, when I took on the role, there was a clear mandate that we were not looking to create, we were not looking to eradicate what existed and create one single culture for WPP. That was never the intention. What we've done is there are the agency cultures that have been retained, and over that we've tried creating an overarching WPP culture which people feel that they can associate or identify with. And that actually has really helped because people don't feel threatened. One, that something new is coming up and it's going to change their life. Secondly, culture is also not something that gets built overnight. So you don't want to take away something that's beautiful and that's going really well for the organization, but also give people the chance to open up their world by looking at something which is an overarching sort of a culture for WPP. And that actually has opened up possibilities for many collaborations to happen. That has opened up possibilities for many client teams to work together on solutioning for clients, because today, for example, clients don't need to go to multiple different agencies for finding ideas or solutions, but they can actually come to one WPP, which can then service them end to end. And how we work within the back end is really where the culture comes into play, where there is natural cross collaboration happening.
Great. So I'm going to ask you something a little offbeat. What is the most unconventional or creative way you've seen values actually come to life in a large organization such as WPP?
And I'll give you it's a bit of a morbid example, but it's also something that I saw during my tenure here, and which I was referring to earlier, that when COVID struck in 2020 in March, we went into a lockdown as a company on the 17th of March when the nation went into lockdown on the 21st of March, right? I had just taken over the role of the WPP's Chief Culture Officer on 1st of March. And the way I have seen values coming to life in those 2 years, when people were going through their worst times, we've had situations where we've lost employees in India, we've lost their family members, we've had people asking for hospital beds, oxygen cylinders, and if you remember that time, it was really hard, right?
The first 2 waves.
Exactly. And we didn't know. We didn't know what was going to happen. Like there seemed like there was no light at the end of the tunnel at that point. I saw people bringing in their best at that point in time as colleagues, as managers, as people in the organization. And the values, the way they got demonstrated at that time, Abhishek, I don't think I've ever seen people coming together. I mean, you come together when there's a crisis that hits you, but generally crisis comes and goes in a short span of time. This was a long crisis to deal with. And for me, that really helped build an organization where I've seen culture becoming the mainstay, in spite of working remote, in spite of not being able to see each other, in spite of, not being there for each other physically or emotionally. And I know, like I said, it's a morbid example, but I think what happened at that point in time has led the foundation of what we've become over these last 5 years. And I'm sure the company will continue to remain that way. So I do think that, that was an example that at least made me feel extremely proud of the company that I work for, and the way company came to support people and the way people supported each other was incredible.
So I think I think you're understating it. I think it's a very inspiring example. Yes. It's a really inspiring example, no doubt. Just a thought on, AI. How do you see AI shaping the future of culture and creativity at WPP?
Interesting. My project on Oxford was on AI and ethics.
Oh, wow.
So I did get to understand it better. I do think it's a subject that still remains to be understood. It's like a sea, right? And you can only keep dipping your feet into the sea and get some information. The way I look at artificial intelligence, and also because in my organization it's increasingly becoming more and more relevant and being used, is that humans will not get replaced with AI. That's one thing for sure. Roles may get replaced, but it also opens up the opportunity to upskill and reskill your talent to make them more relevant. So I think one of the things that AI does is to actually push the talent to look at things creatively and differently. And it also puts the pressure on them to actually upskill themselves. Secondly, what AI does, especially from a culture value standpoint, is that today you can actually gather information, you can gather data and insights using artificial intelligence by putting in good quality prompts to get output which can be super valuable for you to take data-backed decisions, right? And we've tried and tested that. When we do employee surveys, for example, the output of the surveys is then inputted into the system to actually then say what should be the actionable insights that you're getting out of it, and therefore what you need to do for your people. So I think AI will definitely put pressure on people to reskill, upskill themselves.
Absolutely.
It'll help you data which is high quality, which will help you take decisions which are not ad hoc, but there is a reason and logic behind those decisions. And I think it'll also help you improve your processes. It can help in bring you more efficiencies. It can help reduce repetitive tasks done by humans to be done by system. And of course, I mean, from a business standpoint, that it can help enhance your content production process. It can help your creative storytelling. It can help. There is a great space for the technologists and the creators to actually come together to create magic when you look at solutioning. And we've seen that, by the way. I've seen some fantastic work coming out of my India team. For example, the Mondelez ad with Shah Rukh Khan, my birthday song ad, with Mondelez. These are all great examples of using artificial intelligence to create magical solutions with creativity at its heart. So I think that's where I see the role of AI. And
yeah, of course, driving culture and creativity makes sense. Absolutely. I think we're going to spend a few minutes on generational shifts. I was reading that WPP has new campuses in Bangalore and Coimbatore, and we aim to tap into a young dynamic talent pool. So how do you see Gen Z employees actually influencing workforce culture in these cutting edge hubs?
I think 60%, approximately 60% of people in my company currently in India, particularly, are in the age of 28 to 32. So clearly, we have a very young workforce that we are working with. And what that results in is that they're constantly putting a nice challenge in terms of staying relevant to this generation of people in the way we work, right? I also think that with people who come the younger generation, when they come into the organization, they also bring in a lot of freshness, new ideas and perspectives that sometimes you're not able to think. They also push you to get out of the mold, right? Because there is a tendency,
Rigid maybe, or
sorry?
tendency to be rigid? Or?
Tendency to just, there is a comfort with the way you're doing
comfort,
things,
sure.
And sometimes it's not easy to move away from that. Like how AI is putting pressure, I think people also can put pressure on the organization to relook at way things have to be done. And we've seen that, again, we've experienced it. I have experienced it as the Chief Culture Officer, where I've been educated on many things that I thought there was only one way to do it. And I think that younger generation has come and, given some very, very interesting insights. And I think what really is important is you need to be open to listening to them and learning from them, because they can really make the place vibrant and happy and fun. And there is so much to learn from. I mean, there's learning that shouldn't stop, for anyone across the board.
And let's spend a moment on diversity, equity, and inclusion. Of course, DEI has been talked about a lot. How do you embed, global DEI principles of today, while being very sensitive to local norms, local nuances, etc.?
Fair. That's a valid question, because what is true for America and what's true for Europe is not true for India. In India, we work with right now two pillars of from a DEI standpoint, which is women and the LGBTQI community particularly. Of course, when you look at diversity, we also look at geographies. Like you rightly said, we have campuses in Coimbatore, we have Bangalore, Chennai, and rest of the country where there are multiple offices. I think there is, so there is a lot of focus on understanding the geographical differences, but more so when you look at some of the global programs that we've brought to India. For example, in India, we run the largest mentoring network for women across the globe for WPP, which is called Stella. Stella, erstwhile, was launched in UK, and it was done in a certain way. It was small scale. It focused on only a few things, for example, when it came to women's mentoring, etc. But when we brought it to India, and we brought it to India actually in a refreshed version during COVID, when young women would come and tell us that, listen, I'm not able to work because I have too much of family pressure, given that I'm working from home. And which was actually with the point we said we had to relook at the program and relaunch it. And that's the year we got the maximum intake of mentor and mentees. We had 150 women on the program from WPP, helping them navigate through these not just career challenges, but also their aspirations. How do you deal with work situations which can sometimes put pressure back on you, and learning from women who've gone through that journey themselves. So Stella is a program that is for women, of women, women by women. And today I have almost close to 400 plus women who've benefited from the program, either as mentors or mentees. And in most cases, we've seen that mentees, when they graduate and when they've become more experienced, they pay forward by becoming mentors themselves. And lots of mentors who keep coming back on the program every year. So this is not how it's run in other markets, but when we brought it to India, we realized that we had to find a way to help women stay in the workforce and help them find leaders that they could look at and emulate from and learn from to be able to remain successful in their careers. So I think those are some of similarly, when we work with the LGBTQI community, for example, some markets are very evolved, as you can imagine, where it's legal to get married, it's okay to adopt children, and so on and so forth. In India, we still struggle. Supreme Court did not pass a judgment on legalizing marriages for same-sex partners. they can't adopt children, for example. Opening a bank account is not easy. But these are India challenges. So we are working around those areas to see what's relevant for this market, which may not be true for other markets which are at a different stage of evolution when it comes to this community.
Very true.
They just, try to take us slightly into the future. Let's say you were to design the cultural manifesto for WPP in 2030. What are those 3 principles you'd love to incorporate into that manifesto? Things that you feel are non-negotiable or can build the cornerstone of success long term.
People first, always, in my view, because we're in a service industry. Service is delivered by humans and not bots. And therefore, I think it's important that we keep people at the center of everything we do. So I think for me, that's the first thing. Secondly, for any organization to be successful, they need to have a good combination of head and heart. While numbers are important, revenue is important, profit is important, you also need to create a place where people feel inspired to work. They want to come to work. There is flexibility in the way they approach work. And they feel there is a sense of openness in the organization to express. And I'm talking about, because you asked me 2030, because that's a new generation of people we are going to be dealing with, right?
Exactly.
And the last thing is, I think, from a people's standpoint, to know what are you really working for, what's your end goal, what's your end result, what's the last mile in the work that you do. If you know that very clearly, then the rest of it becomes much easier in terms of how you deliver what you deliver. So I think, people first, head and heart, and having your end goal very clear in your head.
What personal values have guided you? How do you ensure those personal values resonate across an org like that?
Fearless. I think I'm a pretty fearless person, and I pretty much speak my mind out. And I don't mean by being fearless, I have to be disrespectful. But I think being fearless is very important, and asking for what you want, fully knowing that it may not happen, but not having the hesitation, is one thing that I feel I've stood by. The second value that I value, that I really think is important to me is I don't allow for wrong to happen on my watch. And which is related to being fearless, actually. But I'm not somebody who will take that. And I will speak my mind out. And I think that's thanks to my upbringing and my family and my parents that, we've always held that value of being, integrity and honesty and being fearless very, very high. And the last thing is that, being authentic is very, very important. You can only fake it up to a point, and people can see through the fakeness. But I think being authentic and being true to yourself and having the courage to say no or I don't know when you need to say that, I think is very, very important to me. And I think the last thing, I know you asked me 3, but there's one more that I want to tell you is operating from a point of security. I've seen many times as you grow in your careers, people tend to become insecure and they feel very scared that somebody else will take away the limelight or the job or that piece of work that you're very keen on. I really think that what is meant to come to you will come to you irrespective. So I think operating from a point of security is absolutely important in a corporate job, because it just helps you remain sane, humble, and grounded.
Very interesting. Of course, you have a long and stable, inspiring career. I'm sure you must have undergone your own set of personal challenges, in this long span. Would you like to throw some light on these?
Yeah, honestly, you asking me, I have never seen anything as a challenge. I've just seen that as probably an opportunity to learn and move forward. But when I was pregnant with my daughter, obviously I was going through my own senses of insecurity at that point to say that, I'll be away from work. What will happen when I come back? Because often I'd heard from other women that, when we went on mat leave, when we came back, that role didn't exist or somebody else had taken the role. And it's a common thing. I'm sure you've heard this and all of that, right? So when I was going to go on my mat leave, those days, 3 months was that time the law was 3 months, 84 days of mat leave, right? Which meant that I had to come back in 3 months. But I was a single mom. And for me to come back in 3 months would have been impossible. And there was enough pressure from certain people in the system to come back. And, and obviously my personal and professional life was at crossroads and I had to make a choice. And that is when I became fearless and I said, I am going to take care of my daughter because this is the most important chapter of my life currently. And I am happy to quit if that's what it means, but I will not be able to come back till I've got my personal life organized in terms of, having a support system to look after my daughter. And I've been very lucky because I've always had great allies in my system and in my organization and in my personal life. And they've always helped you to sort of think through when you're going through a bit of a rough patch. And, that decision to actually communicate that I am okay to quit if you think I can't, you can't manage with my, requirements currently, were sort of taken into account. And, I was given another 3 months of leave. And I came back to work when my daughter turned 6 months. And, that was hard now when I look back. But I'm glad I did what I did because,
Absolutely.
Sometimes you're always, and as women more so, you're always feeling the need to prove yourself more because there's this always pressure, right? And as women, we go through multiple life stages where, marriage is one thing where you're expected to be a certain way. When you become a parent, the pressure is a little more on the mom, and let's be fair because it is moms who have to take on the burden. Or, when you become the primary caregiver for your parents, ailing parents or your in-laws, etc., right? So there is always this added pressure that if I go on a long break, will my career take a backseat or will it pause or will I not get the growth that I'm expected to? But for me personally, I think my career really took off after my daughter came into my life. So for me, that's the biggest lesson to say that, when you have a choice to make, go with what your heart says, what's right for you at that point in time. Don't let the head take that decision fully.
Interesting. Great message. More power to you, Apoorva, of course.
Thank
you. I just got to just touch upon, what's happening, these days. What's your take on the 90-hour work week sort of debate these days? I would love to know your thoughts on that.
Shocked, appalled,
Okay, great.
Disgusted.
Fantastic.
I mean, come on. We thought we'd got better thanks to COVID, the learnings that we had from COVID, flexibility, giving time to your family, having a sense of balance is that you needed. And I'm sorry, but how do you expect, if you're expecting people to spend 90 hours at work, we are humans. Humans function on both with their heart and with their brains.
Yeah.
What you're telling them by doing 90 hours is just let the brains work and let the heart take a back seat. People have families, people have relationships, people have friends. In India and across the world, there are festivals that we celebrate.
Yes.
So there are lots of moments that we want to spend with our family and be with them because they give us the energy to, give our best at work.
Absolutely.
But if you're going to do everything at work and have no life, I mean, I haven't been able to get my head around the statement of 90 years. It's like, going back to that being the bonded laborers in back pre-independence days where you had no control over your life and, there were other people who were telling you what you had to do and how much you had to do. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I just have a last couple of questions before we conclude. Outside of work, who is Apoorva?
Outside of work, who's actually a lot of fun. I love trying new things. So I'll give you an example. Tomorrow, for the first time, I'm going to play a pickleball tournament in Gurgaon.
I urge you
which
to do it. It's real fun.
which I haven't done. So I love experimenting. I love music. I sing, and I love singing. And I've learned singing for many years and then stopped. But that's always something that I have found myself loving. And I think my daughter, she is my center of life. And she is somebody that I really, really love spending time with.
Awesome.
And I think those are some of the things that I love doing.
Great. Awesome. Thank you. If you were to give a short message to our listeners, comprising of budding leaders, MBA aspirants, current MBA students, what would that message be?
Firstly, I think, learning is a journey that should never stop for any human. And learning doesn't only happen in colleges. Learning happens at every moment in your life. And I think you have to find the moment and, learn from it and apply that back to your life. Second is, always having a sense of gratitude in everything that you do and everything that you receive, without always worrying about the outcome, or whether it's or clinging to the negativity, because as humans we do end up clinging more to negativity than positivity. So I think having this sense of gratitude and a sense of abundance is super important. And because there are lots of, I'm sure, students and, like you said, the MBA aspirants who are going to be listening to the conversation, job is only one part of your life. Don't let that become your life. I think that's very, very important.
Great.
People to remember.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Apoorva. It's been a fantastic, thrilling conversation, very inspiring, very thought-provoking. Thank you so much for tuning in to this edition of the CHRO Exchange Podcast. Stay tuned for more such conversations. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.